Game Connect.
Hello and welcome to Retro Game Connect. This week's episode we have a real classic, favorite of mine, Final Fight. Now this is the Sega CD version, which is, I think, one of the better ports of Final Fight, at least, on contemporary systems.
Contemporary.
Yeah, at the time, nowadays you can get it on Xbox Live. It's basically a straight emulation of the arcade game, so obviously it's arcade perfect. It's basically just is the arcade game. At the time, they couldn't do that. It first came home on Super Nintendo. I mean, the original arcade game was 1989. It was at one point supposed to be a sequel to the original Street Fighter. Street Fighter 1, which nobody remembers because it was bad.
And yet, what series is still around?
Yeah. Street Fighter is still kicking. The first one was not good. The second one
Still kicking.
was really good. Yeah, it's not intentional. Wait, no, it wasn't.
Really made it to the punchline on that one.
There you go. Anyhow, it was supposed to be a sequel. It was such a different game that arcade operators were like, well, this isn't Street Fighter, so they renamed it. They renamed it Final Fight. It came home to Super Nintendo in 1991, but they had to make tons of cuts because it was a launch game. Capcom didn't know the hardware very well. They didn't have a very big cartridge to work with, so there are tons of background details missing. They took out an entire playable character. The game is only one player, even though one of the great things about the arcade game was that it was two players.
And I've played this single player, and it's very difficult.
It's very hard.
I'm pretty sure this was meant for two players.
Oh, absolutely. There are fewer characters on screen. Even in this version, there are fewer characters on screen than there were in the arcade, but there are more than the Super Nintendo version. There were just a lot of compromises that had been made. So there are a few other ports. I think probably the best is on a Japanese home computer system, which is, I've seen this written a bunch of times, but I've never actually heard it said, so I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. But the Sharp X68000, based on the same Motorola chip that you find in your early Macintosh computers. And that's actually this hardware that Capcom used to develop games at that time. One of their innovations around the time was the Capcom Play System, aka the CPS, which is a modular design similar to the Neo Geo, where arcade operators would buy a CPS system, and then they could just swap out the hardware and like a little game, or not the hardware, rather swap out the artwork and a little cartridge which had the actual game on it. Saves them a lot of money,
Yeah, sort of the sort of original console, because the arcade cabinets were one game and that was it. While you have your consoles like this one here, where you can put in different games.
Exactly, they're bringing the console ethos to the arcade, saving money for pretty much everybody. Capcom and the arcade operators, who before had to buy a bunch of dedicated machines. They were custom built for each game and would literally cost thousands of dollars. So this game came out. It's a very accurate port, but obviously you couldn't get that in America. You were stuck with the Super Nintendo version, which played pretty well, had decent graphics, but had a lot of compromises. Now, several years later, not till 1994, when Sega was trying to push its CD hardware, this CD add-on for the Sega Genesis, the Sega CD, they actually ported Final Fight themselves.
See, ports of old games to new consoles, not a new concept, everybody. A lot of people very angry about that. It's not a new concept. Okay? What they're doing with the Legend of Zelda games to the 3DS, not new.
Definitely not. But these games, Sega's had done this a lot. In the 80s and the early 90s, one of the ways that Nintendo locked up the console market was to license games, right? They'd seen what had happened with Atari, where it was flooded, where anybody could make an Atari game. Atari couldn't stop anybody.
E.T.
That was Atari's own fault. But anybody could make an Atari game. And lots of people made Atari games, and lots of people did not make Atari games well.
E.T.
Yes, even not even Atari always made Atari games well. But it was flooded with garbage. Total crap. Absolute horrible, horrible games that killed the market. And that's why you had the great video game crash from 1983, because nobody wanted to buy games anymore because there's so much trash out there. You couldn't sort through it all to get to the good stuff.
Thanks, Atari.
But Nintendo saw that and like, okay. And they had actually had a similar situation in Japan with the Famicom, where they didn't have a licensing system in place. Anybody could make Famicom games. There was some absolute dreck that never left Japan. Awful, barely functional games. And they're like, okay, no, we're not doing this in America. So when they came out with the NES, they said, you have to get a license, and we will produce the game. And if we do not like the game, you don't get to make this game. That's where the official Nintendo seal of quality came in. And that completely changed things. But they used that to lord it over video game manufacturers. Right? You had to go through Nintendo to get your game made. And Nintendo was the big game, so everyone wanted to be on Nintendo. And they said, okay, if you want to be on our super successful NES system, you can only make games for the NES. You can't make games for this Master System thing. You have to just make NES games. So what Sega would do is like, okay, well, your agreement with Nintendo was you can't program games for Master System, but they never said we can't program games for Master System. So license your game to us. We'll do all the porting work and release your game on our system, and you just get to pocket the money.
Smart.
They did this with a lot of games. They did this. This led to the very successful Genesis version of Strider. You know, Strider was very close to the arcade on Genesis. The NES Strider actually had nothing to do with the arcade game. It wasn't even a port. It actually went into development before the arcade game. A lot of people don't know that because it had development didn't go well. It actually ended up coming out later. So a lot of people think it's Capcom rejiggering the game for NES, which they did with a lot of their arcade games. Like Bionic Commando arcade and NES are completely different games, and it's much better on NES. The arcade game is pretty throwaway. But that's not what happened. Sega ported it. And they did the same thing, even though Capcom had already released a game on Genesis by this point. This was after their first internally developed game, which was Street Fighter II Special Championship Edition. It had already come out. I don't know if this was Capcom didn't want to take on another game, if they didn't feel like bringing a game that old to Genesis, or because Sega was just like, you know what, we know how the Sega CD works. You probably don't. Let us port this because we want a showcase game for our system. But either way, they're the ones that ended up porting it. So they brought that out for the Sega CD, ported themselves. And it's actually a really strong port. There are some differences, which we'll go over when we play it. But it's pretty good. I think Final Fight is one of my favorite beat 'em ups. I don't know how much experience you have with like the side-scrolling beat 'em up genre.
Mostly arcade ones.
Right.
Like I remember playing a Spider-Man one.
Okay. Yes.
And the Simpsons one, which was
the
kind of weird.
Simpsons ones were a lot of fun. The Spider-Man one, I'm surprised you actually played it because I'd never seen that in the arcade.
It was in an arcade cabinet that was at a local campground.
Yeah, I didn't even
And
know
they had it there for quite some time. You could play as Hawkeye and
Yeah.
Spider-Man, a few other people.
I think Black Cat was in it.
And I think Wolverine.
Guess why not? Yeah, that's one I didn't even know existed until I found it online.
Yeah.
But it was the genre really exploded in the early 90s. The first side-scrolling beat 'em up, Renegade, late 80s from Technos. Terrible game. Awful. I hate it.
As much as you hate the 32X?
Maybe even a little bit more.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. You can actually hook up this 32X and play it on.
Which is just like the ultimate ball of hatred for you.
Yes, on Renegade. It's the first beat 'em up. It pretty much like established the rules of the genre, but they hadn't figured out things like having guys get stunned when you hit them. So you kick guys a few times, and there's really nothing stopping them from kicking you back. And there are a lot of guys on screen, so you'll quickly get surrounded. And basically my experience with Renegade is quickly getting surrounded and not being able to make it out of the first level because I'm beaten up by a gang of people, which I suppose is realistic, because if you take on a gang of 8 people by yourself, you will get the crap kicked out of you. But it's not very fun in a video game.
No.
So they established the rules. Not actually a very good game, though. They came back later with Double Dragon. Now, Double Dragon, It's probably the first good beat 'em up.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, Double Dragon, got an NES port, which they couldn't fit the 2-player mode into because of hardware limitations. But they redesigned it a bit for NES to make it work more on the platform. That was, it wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better. It's a lot more fun to play. It's got some balance problems. You can basically tear through the game by using the back elbow attack. It's way too powerful. But, there's a lot more guys on the screen. It's a lot more fair. You can actually play through it. There's still some cheap design, but it's pretty good. And, they made sequels to that. I was actually looking, when I was researching Final Fight for the episode, I found out that Final Fight was actually inspired by Double Dragon 2. So the producer of the game, which is, I think, let me make sure I get the name right, very famous Capcom designer, Yoshiki Okamoto, who I believe went on to form Game Republic after he left Capcom. He had actually seen Double Dragon 2 in the arcade, and he's like, you know what? I can do better. He's like, this is an interesting game. I think I can beat it. And that inspired the design for Final Fight. So what they did with Final Fight is they stripped down the design. Double Dragon is complicated. When some games in the series have like a button for hitting left and a button for hitting right. There are ones that separate into punches and kicks. They tried a lot of different things because they were still establishing the genre. And he's like, I'm going to simplify it. Final Fight, 2 buttons. Attack, jump. That's all you need. And there's still a lot of technique in there. You can stun people with your combos. I'm pretty sure it's in the first game. There's actually a jumping down attack. If you hold down and hit the jump attack, you can start a combo from a jumping attack. I'm pretty sure it's in the first game, but we'll see when we play it. I may be remembering wrong. There are several Final Fight games. I could be getting confused. But they made the graphics better, the graphics, the larger sprites, a lot more color, it's on a more powerful hardware.
Color is always nice on a video game. You don't want something too drab because then it just doesn't attract your eye.
That's something, the march of progress, where you can, the better hardware, they could make the graphics more detailed. And they took advantage of that. There's a lot more detail.
Nowadays you can get away with darker games because they have a darker theme.
Yeah.
But back when they were first trying to establish it, they want bright, colorful, flashy in your face.
Honestly, I'd like to see more color today. I think there are too many games that are just use gray
Gritty.
Or brown.
Yeah.
Everything's trying to be realistic, so everything ends up looking the same. I want to see more stylization. I love that. You see things
Kirby.
Kirby. You see things like the Naruto games. No matter what you think about those games, they look amazing.
Another game that looks really nice like that is Okami.
Okami is beautiful.
Something not a lot of people know about.
It hurts my heart that game did not sell better.
I love that game.
They tried it 3 times. PS2, Wii, PS3. People still don't buy it.
There's a one for the Nintendo DS, too.
Yes, there was Okami Den for DS.
I have the PS2 and the PS3 version.
Off topic, but this is a Capcom game. Buy Okami. It's available for PlayStation 3 right now. It's a digital game. You don't have to worry about being able to find it at your local video game store.
You like RPGs?
It's great.
It's great.
It's very.
We could probably even force an episode on it because PS2 is kind of retro at this point.
It's ready. I will. We can play. Yes, it'll happen. Let's do it. You know what? We don't even know if we're going to have more episodes, but we're promising Okami right now. Let's do it. Yes. I love that game.
It's fantastic.
Hey, it's on topic. It's Capcom.
It is.
But, very colorful game. Basically, it became the, what's the word, the mold, perhaps the prototype. I'm having trouble thinking of the, basically, it set the rules, Renegade and Double Dragon kind of established things, but once Final Fight came out, that's the game that everybody followed. That's the game that everybody tried to be like. You look at the Capcom.
Sort of like how Medal of Honor laid the groundwork for the wartime FPS shooter, now Call of Duty has taken over and gotten rid of it.
Exactly. People started out trying to be Medal of Honor, and once Call of Duty came out, everyone's trying to be Call of Duty.
Yeah. Because
it was such a big success. Capcom did the same thing with Street Fighter 2. Not the first fighting game. Obviously not the first Street Fighter game because it's Street Fighter 2.
To be fair, Star Wars was episode 4.
It did, but Street Fighter did not start with 2. It started with 1. But Street Fighter 2 is the game that everybody copied. I mean, before that, you had stuff like Karate Champ. All kinds. There were several one-on-one fighting games, but when Street Fighter 2 came out, that's what everybody wanted to be. When Final Fight came out, that's what everybody wanted to be. So you look at Konami's beat 'em ups; they play a lot closer to Final Fight than they do Double Dragon. You look at like the one or two beat 'em ups made by, like, say, Sega or any other companies. I think Bandai made a couple. SNK made several. They're all in the Final Fight mode. That's how influential Final Fight was. And so, again, I think one of the best ways to play it at home, at least until you were able to get the straight-on emulated arcade versions, which I think the first time you were able to do that was Capcom Classics Collection on PS2 and Xbox. But the best way, I think, was the Sega CD version. So let's take a look at it. So as you can see, it's reprogrammed by Sega. I guess they actually did a lot of the work in '93, but the game released in '94. I think it was a early '94 release. This is one of the new features of the Sega CD version. We'll take a moment and listen to it.
Metro City, a well-known crime capital, has been ruled by violence and death for many years. A fact which the newly elected mayor and former Street Fighter Mike Hager plans to change.
All the versions, it's just a text
At
scroll.
the center of the problem is the huge gang known as Mad Gear. Mad Gear controls all of the major criminal activity in the city.
The English voices, not great, but they are completely new for the Sega CD version.
They took immediate action to bring this new mayor under their control. Sometime in 1992.
Hello, Mike Hager here.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love it. It's so bad.
At least it's not Mafia Admiral Akbar.
That's true. That's true.
We have a little business proposition for you. Your daughter for your cooperation. And we'll throw in the regular monthly bonus to your salary we offer.
But coming up right here, you can see one of the first instances of censorship in this game. Mike Hagar, the mayor, is about to turn on his TV.
Turn on your TV.
Here's his daughter, Jessica.
Son of a... What have you done?
You
No.
son of a blank.
Nothing yet. But we'd enjoy.
And the arcade version and the Japanese version, they've stripped her down to a bra. In America, they were like, yeah, let's not do this. Put some more clothes on her.
That's sort of ironic with the times nowadays.
Yeah, it pushes that stuff even more now. At the time, they toned it down. In the Super Nintendo version, that's actually missing entirely. When he turns on the TV, it's just the boss, who in the Japanese version and the arcade version is named Damned. But as we'll see later, his name has been changed to Thrasher.
Thrasher.
Yes, because when I use the word damn.
My sweetheart since childhood.
The Mad Gear must pay. She's my friend too. Count me in.
All right, so we'll press start here. If we have time, we'll take a look at this later. But another new feature for the Sega CD version is time attack. That is not in any other version.
That's where you get attacked by clocks.
It's actually basically it's a survival mode. It has unique backgrounds that are only in the Sega CD version. So that's a completely unique feature.
So it's like
for Sega
an
CD.
older Horde mode.
Yeah, basically. So we'll go ahead and start it up. As you can see, as soon as it finishes loading, when the downside is the CD-ROM version, there's load time. Press start, I think. I like Guy. I'll pick Guy.
I'll pick the dude that looks like Arnold.
Mayor Mike Hagar. He's interesting. He's a former Street Fighter and wrestler who went into politics. And this game actually came out before Jesse the Body Ventura did that in real life. So interesting parallel. So as you can see, you got the two characters you can walk around. I got a wall here, so I can see if I can do my wall jump. No, it doesn't look like it. Every
Also-
character has special abilities. Guy can bounce off walls. Hagar can actually pick guys up and walk around with them and do jumping throws. You get all kinds of bonus items you can pick up. He's got the best throws. I think he's also best with the pipe. Guy is, of course, the fastest character. And has wall jump, and Cody's the all-around guy. And also, there seems to be friendly fire, so we gotta be careful of that.
Stupid friendly fire.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. Unfortunately, you don't seem to be able to turn it off. Of course, what the move you just did is a special invincible move that will clear off everybody around you, but uses up a little bit of your life. So you have to
Which
decide.
totally makes sense.
Yes, like, am I going to lose more life fighting all these guys, or am I better off using my screen clearing move? This was, of course, another thing that you saw.
Oh, I died.
You saw copied in pretty much every beat 'em going forward. That's not something that was in anything prior to Final Fight. So as you can see, you do have your regular flying kick,
Whoa!
but you also, if you hold down, we're going to have to wait to the screen transition. Oh, this is something else that was covered
Apparently
from-
they don't know how to open doors. Just break
this is
them.
faster. But that's another thing that was missing from the Super Nintendo version. In the Super Nintendo version, you just went straight to the next area. You need that gigantic meat with the bone right in it.
Probably helpful. Haha.
I've never actually seen one of those, but they're all in all kinds of video games and comics and such. You see the big bone-in meat. This is the first boss. As you can see, his name has been changed to Thrasher, but originally it was Damned, without the E, just D-A-M-N-D, because he's street or something, I don't even know. Now, one of the differences from the arcade and the Super Nintendo version is the attacks have been slowed down slightly. So there is actually an infinite combo that you can do in other versions of the game that's a bit harder to do here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it off. Basically, hit a couple times, turn away, then turn back, and they'll never be able to get out of your... Oh, jeez.
Oh, I died again.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. But see, I lost it there, but as you can see, he was stuck in hit stun. He couldn't get out of it.
But you just randomly turned around and hit me.
See, I'm turning around to do the big move that knocks him off. Looks like he can get out of it, but regular enemies, you can completely freeze him in place. I don't know if Hagar can do it. Because of the way his attacks work, he may not be able to. Oh, still alive. No, I'm dead. Cody probably has the easiest
Aha! Do.
But yeah, these stage transitions, not in the Super Nintendo version. That's another thing they cut. Obviously, the character I'm playing right now, they cut. Again, they had a very small cartridge.
I mean, they just called him Guy. I don't think he's that important.
Now, that's interesting because, he's Japanese, so I guess normally it'd be romanized G-A-I, but they probably wanted to be more sure people would pronounce it right. I mean, how long did it take people to figure out Guile? There are all kinds of crazy pronunciations of that. Oh, here's another instance of censorship. This character you're beating up right now, Poison.
The female?
Yes, in the Super Nintendo version, she was removed entirely and replaced. She and the other female character, Roxy, were replaced with Billy and Sid.
Huh.
Because they didn't like the idea of you beating up women.
Well, you shouldn't beat up women.
Yeah.
Ladies and gents.
But you also see that they've been given longer shorts and longer shirts. For
Definitely
the
not the
US version.
cosplays I've seen.
Yeah, exactly. If you see Poison and
Whoa.
Roxy in the arcade, they wear very revealing clothing. When you punch her in the face, you get some underboob. So that's they thought they're like, let's not do that, and made her clothing less revealing.
But it does reveal her personality.
It does.
I love how there's like Jake and Simmons,
Yeah.
but then others are like Roxy
Yeah.
and Andor Jr.
A lot of them seem to be named after bands and musicians.
Yeah,
and
I've
stuff.
noticed there's Slash and Axel.
Yep. Andor is actually named after Andre the Giant.
I kind of figured because he
Yeah.
kind of looks like him.
Exactly. So he's an obvious reference to Andre. Oh.
I love how he like makes out with you and kills you.
Yeah. Chokes you out. He's a big, dangerous guy. There are a whole bunch of Andor enemies. Even in an arcade game, there's a limited amount of guys. It's a limited amount of stuff they could fit into the ROM, so they made a lot of use of palette swaps to add in more enemies. So there'll be different color versions of guys that are tough.
I mean, that's even in like Halo games.
Oh yeah, you still see it a bit. I think you just got an extra life. Congratulations.
Woo!
Got an extra guy. So this is pretty well known. I don't know if you've heard the story before about Poison actually being a guy.
I've heard that.
Apparently, the way the story goes is somebody at Capcom called up Capcom Japan. They're like, hey, I don't know how I feel about beating up this woman. And the guy's like, woman? He's like, yeah, it's poison. He's like, no, poison's actually a transvestite. He's like, okay, Capcom Japan, don't think that really makes things better. Might actually make it worse. It's like, oh, great, now it's a hate crime. Good work.
Hollywood.
Yes, Hollywood. They've actually gone back and forth on that quite a bit. They've gone to saying poison is transsexual, poison is not transsexual, poison is post-op, poison is pre-op.
You know, like,
I think the latest
it doesn't have to conform to the gender binary, man.
I think the latest is poison is whatever you want to believe she is.
Poison is Tinkerbell.
I try not to worry about it too much. See, one of Cody's abilities is when you pick up knives with him, he does not throw them, he stabs
Yeah, I
people.
noticed that.
And of course, when we come back, I will finally remember to show people that yes, the attack where you hold down and can start a combo after your jumping attack is right in this game. So that's a little neat little bit of technique.
Now
Gotta
we
find
must
an area where
roll.
I can do it. But Guy does have a. Oh,
You
I
just,
did
like-
not think I was close enough to you to kick you. All right, you better get that gigantic meat. It'll refill your health.
Meat.
It's apparently barbecue. Doesn't really look like barbecue, but I'll take Capcom's
Ow.
word for it. Doug. I don't think that's how you spell that. Oh. I really wish you could turn off friendly fire. That is one thing that Double Dragon got right. Two-player Double Dragon, at least for the home versions. You're able to select whether you want to be able to hit each other or not. I would always select not. I think one guy is kind of tricky with friendly fire on.
Yeah.
I know how he busted that by jumping over it, but sure, why not? Breaking things is fun. This is the first really annoying boss, I think.
Now we will take you down with my muscles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ow.
It's like you pick up that weapon and you almost immediately lose it. Because he does that. So he's called Katana here because, of course, this is the edited version. But in the arcade, in the Japanese version, is known as Sodom, though maybe you can guess why they changed it. Many of the Final Fight characters return in Street Fighter. In the original Street Fighter Alpha, you can play as Guy. They also added Sodom.
Oh, isn't Poison a playable character later, too? Because I
Well-
didn't know she was from this.
Yes,
I'll tell
Poison
you
is
that
originally from Final Fight. But the first time you can play her is in Final Fight Revenge, which is an arcade and Saturn 3D fighting game, which is not good.
Break the car
Yes, let's destroy the car.
with your muscles.
The classic car destruction stage, which is a lot of fun. This also came back in Street Fighter later, destroying cars is a bonus stage.
Hey, the license plate says Japan.
Oh, we're not going to get the Oh My Car guy. Oh, no, here he is.
Oh. I didn't do anything.
Oh. Ooh. Okay, one last thing. I think I have a wall here, so let's see if I can do the wall jump. I'm just not remembering how to do it. I don't know.
We
Yeah,
must
whoa,
go.
Yes, Poison came back in Street Fighter vs. Tekken. It was the first time she was playable if you don't count Final Fight Revenge, which most people don't.
Ow. He hits me with his muscles.
He did. He's a big burly fella. Gotta watch out for that. But he came back, Guy came back, Sodom is also in Street Fighter Alpha. In Street Fighter Alpha 3, they brought back Cody.
I have to say, one of the things that does bother me about this is the awkward 3D of the plane. It's hard to tell where you are sometimes
Yeah.
in relation to other enemies.
Right.
Look at these people.
Let me get this entire chicken that we just found on the floor.
Burger?
Because why not? It's probably okay to eat, right?
Totally. It wasn't in a trash can or anything.
That's another thing Final Fight invented that a lot of people copied.
Food replenishes
Yes.
health.
Well, no, I mean finding items on the floor and just going ahead and eating them. Well, I don't know then. Castlevania did have roast beef in the walls.
That's creepy. I don't know if I would eat roast beef out of the wall. These people are just like, yeah, whatever. Who cares that all these people are killing each other right here?
It's fine, whatever.
Whatever.
As long as I can get my drink on.
Don't drink alcohol, kids. You will not care about the mass of burly men beating the
Well, I guess that's
hell out of each other.
that's the attraction of a dive bar, right? Oh, I just got beat up by Wong Fu. Thank you for everything, Julie Newmar. All right, I'm going to let Mike continue to run out because we're running short of time. Haggard did eventually come back in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is the first time Ethan playable in like a standard, like one standard
1v1.
2D fighting game, yeah. Well, it's 3-on-3, but yeah. He's also in Saturday Night Slam Masters, which is Capcom's take on a wrestling game. Actually, the sequel to Saturday Night Slam Masters was more of a traditional fighter, but nobody's played that because it was very obscure.
I love how you can just get the absolute hell beaten out of you in this. Like, you really just sometimes can't do anything.
This is another arcade game where they wanted to separate you from your quarters.
See, you literally can't do anything right there.
But it's one of the earlier arcade games where you start off right where you left off, so you can credit feed all the way to the end. So if you're playing the arcade version of this and you have enough quarters, you will eventually win.
And if you can line this up right, you can just do the flying kung fu kick.
Yeah, there are some AI exploits you can take care of. You can take advantage and use them to win. But it can still be pretty difficult.
Oh, I died. Look at how much
Still
health.
alive.
Look at how much
Still make
health it separates me with. Like,
Pile drivers
come
are
on.
dangerous. But good luck getting them on him.
I have beaten you with my muscles.
There you go. I don't know if we're going to make it this far, but if you can beat this boss, I think you will go to the entire level that was cut out of the Super Nintendo version. There's a construction site level with Rolento, who also reappeared in Street Fighter Alpha. He's the boss of that level. Removed completely from the Super Nintendo version to Dead Space.
Damn space and your limitations.
Yep, it was a pretty big deal back then.
Now it's just like, whatever. We'll just put the game on 2 discs. Who cares?
Yep. Here's a nice trick.
Oh my.
See that used gum? You can pick it up and eat it.
Okay.
It refills your
That's
health.
really gross.
It is. But for some reason, you can refill your health with ABC gum. I think it actually, does it actually come up as ABC gum? It was pretty fast,
No,
didn't
I
say.
died.
All right, so we're not going to continue because I want to see this continue screen. Another fun thing. You get the dynamite to continue. Someone will throw a knife, but we're not going to do that right now. Oh no. Mayor
Oh
Mike
my
Hagar
god, they
exploded.
killed Kenny.
So, sum up. Final Fight is one of my favorites.
It was quite enjoyable. Again, one of those stupidly difficult ones because it's
Yeah.
an arcade game. I tried playing through that solo, and I did not get that far because as soon as you get guys on each side of you, you're dead.
Yeah, a lot of people think that the game is like really arcade perfect, but you know the attacks are a little slower. In the arcade game and other ports, Cody and Guy have that infinite combo, which can get you through a lot of guys. You know, basically you do, I think, the first 2 or 3, depending on which character you are, hits of your attack chain. You would take the big hit and you face away, and you know so it doesn't move the guy into the next stage of the combo. Then you face back and you restart the combo, and basically they get locked in the stun position, and you can beat them up. Those are good times. Again, it's very trend-setting. You know, it's like, yeah, there was Double Dragon, there were Renegade before that, but then Final
It's
Fight
sort
took
of
over.
the Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Exactly, you know, it's like,
The thing that made everybody jump to FPS.
yeah, when
That
Final
came
Fight came out, everybody tried to do Final Fight. Capcom did a lot of great beat-em-ups following that. You know, there's Final Fight 2 and 3, which were Super Nintendo only, but which finally had 2 players and bring back Guy and all that sort of thing. But they did games like Knights of the Round,
Knights of the Round Table.
yeah. I think King of Dragons, I think, is another one. They a couple licensed game. There's a game based. One of their best ones is Alien vs Predator.
EVP.
Yeah, it's probably one of the better Alien vs Predator games. Well, it's probably not saying much because most of them suck. There's like 1 or 2 good ones, and a lot of really bad ones.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they made that. I mean, their final beat 'em up game, Battle Circuit, which is you don't really see it. It's very rare. I don't think it got a lot of play in the United States, but it basically evolved everything they'd done over the course of all the beat 'em ups that made. You know, another favorite of mine is they did 2 Dungeons and Dragons game. Yeah, which are add to the formula with experience and levels, and you can pick up different items and such to power up your character. And it's got like branching paths. So, you know, they really iterated on the design and influenced other people like Konami. You can see like a lot of Konami's games seem to borrow a lot from the Final Fight design ethos. You know, like you'll have games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which will have like the block health, the kind of more like Double Dragon. But then, later games will have, like, the bar, like you had in Final Fight.
Mm-hmm.
The way they do the health. They'll have the screen clearing attacks. Sega actually responded to Capcom by having their own side-scrolling beat-em-up in Streets of Rage. And Streets of Rage games were actually really good beat-em-up. Streets of Rage 2 is probably the best out of the three. But, they came and said, okay, we can do this. Since we don't have Final Fight, we're going to make our own series, which makes it kind of ironic that they came back and created a port of Final Fight for Sega CD for one of their launch games.
Yeah.
But it is, I think, top game in general, very foundational. I do think it's still worthwhile going back to. I mean, you can buy it right now on PSN or Xbox Live Arcade. There's a double pack. It comes packed with, I believe, Magic Sword. And it's, straight up arcade emulation, so you get the arcade game. It's got lots of bonus features. I think it's a game worth playing. You see a lot of history. It's probably not something you're going to play for hours on end because, it can get a bit repetitive. That's kind of, I think, why the genre disappeared toward the mid-90s.
So you can only do so much.
You can only do so much. Though, I think another part of it was just the runaway success of Street Fighter 2. Basically just crushed everything else in the arcade. And when Street Fighter 2 came out, just about all people were making. So how did you feel about Final Fight?
I enjoyed it. It, again, difficult, but very simple, which is nice and not nice because it's like, yeah, I only have to hit one button to attack, but it's also like, I can't block and I can't dodge. Yeah. And the scrolling up and down gets sort of weird because you're not always sure exactly where the other enemies are on that y-axis of the graph. So you're like punching and you're like, he's not there. Some
games are better with that than others. I've seen ones that you have to be really exact with how you're lined up, and Final Fight is a bit more generous. But that's one of the things. That's why it's really hard to do those games in 3D because targeting is a huge problem. It's a good game.
So, good Capcom game. I would recommend playing it.
I love it.
Little.
I bought it
If you were going to take anything away from any games you should play from this episode, it's Final Fight and Okami.
Yeah, that also the Dungeons and Dragons games are on Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. There are a lot of later games that have a lot of great innovations. If you're up for a brawler, there are lots of great games. You can't go wrong with just about anything Capcom made. Konami made some great ones too. So check that out. Streets of Rage. All stuff I definitely recommend.
All right.
So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, I'm Dan Mastriani. You can find me on Twitter at NewTypeCola.
And I'm Ian Butterfield. You can find me on Twitter at IanGButterfield. Simple. You won't forget my name.
All right. If you enjoyed this episode, remember, like, subscribe, leave us a comment down in the comment section. Let us know. Are there games you'd like us to play? Is there things you like or dislike about the format? Get in touch. I mean, if I have the game or if I can easily get a hold of the game, we might just play it in a future episode. I hope you enjoyed it.
Have a good one.